Jon Hopkins.
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Jon Hopkins album, Immunity. Jon Hopkins is a London-based electronic music producer. This is his second full-length solo LP for Domino Records. I first heard of his music after he signed to Domino Records and put out his first full-length for them, Insides, back in 2009. An album I liked a lot of tracks from, especially songs like the very heavy, crushing, and kind of distorted title track. And a lot of the other songs on this thing too, which had very eerie, beautiful, and kind of cinematic synth playing throughout. At the end of the day, I just felt like the album was okay though, because it really felt like a mixed bag of ideas from IDM, down-tempo, glitch. Even though I did like a lot of tracks off of Insides, I didn't think Jon Hopkins would come back around and put out an LP I enjoy this much. Immunity pulls together a lot of tracks that are various blends of house and techno styles. Occasionally Jon will come through with his very cinematic ear, which will lead him to introduce some very spacious, beautiful piano chords. It's almost as if he's doing a modern, minimal, neoclassical thing against some of these electronic sounds. And I have to say, as far as tech house goes, Jon's blends of these styles are really good on this thing. Of course, you've got a lot of driving quarter note kick drums. As far as the grooves go, this album is not very robotic, cold, or chilly. But I wouldn't exactly say this LP is bouncy or lively either. Rather, what Jon is pulling together with these tracks is something that is very textured, kind of glitchy, really dramatic. And there's a very strong melodic element to these tracks too, even if it is a very soft and spacious one. Jon's beats can be really thick and just dense with different sounds, but he keeps it rather simple when it comes to the melody writing, which is okay. He does sort of do a quality over quantity kind of thing. He doesn't really busy up a lot of these leads, and still, even though they aren't really in your face and they do take their time to grow and progress, they are very pretty gripping. Even though a lot of what you'll hear on this album, if you try it out, are repetitive beats, repetitive loops that progress very subtly, Jon, with the way he arranges piano and synths and just other sounds around these grooves, it makes them feel so purposeful and lofty and kind of poignant without him even really saying anything on these songs. This loftiness and sense of purpose really progresses to the point where the last track on this LP, with these really faint vocals and these beautiful spacious pianos, they sound like they're from a cut from the last Sigur Rós album. It's not a bad track, but it is one of the few moments on this LP that to me feel kind of just out of place, really coming out of left field. Still, the more electronically driven tracks that Jon pulls together on this thing are high quality. The opening track on here has this amazing beat that is just dark. It's subtle, but very dense. It's simultaneously noisy and quiet. It's just so friggin' textured. I love it. The murky bass line on this thing is fantastic. The atmospheric synthesizers on this thing. And I love that this song, the way it ends, it almost feels like I'm just gliding into the next track. There's not some breaking point like, oh, okay, this is a totally different thing than this. Jon really holistically conceives this album. After this, you've got tracks like Open Eye Signal, as well as Collider, songs that, in my opinion, take a stronger techno approach. The hard beats on these tracks feel mechanical, calculated, but both of these songs are still incredibly detailed and atmospheric. The track Open Eye Signal, with its constant beat change-ups and its bass line, which I cannot even explain. I mean, not melodically. Melodically, it's actually pretty simple, but what he does with it texturally. It feels like he wrote this really smooth, bouncy bass line, and he's just like choking it and shaking it and just There are moments where it's really deep and resonant and thick, and then there are other spots where it feels like he's just crushing it and squeezing it to get these very strange melodic undertones. And the song Collider takes a little bit of a different approach with its beat. It's not always changing up. It's actually pretty hypnotic and very, very repetitive. But the sounds that Jon arranges around this track, especially the really atmospheric synths, it's almost deafening how thick this track gets. The more piano-driven pieces are beautiful, beautiful and add a fantastic counterpoint to the more electronic tracks on this LP. I think the only song that I didn't really care for was the track Formed by Firelight, with this really slow, kind of distorted, shuffling beat that didn't really appeal to me all that much. A lot of Jon's piano playing around this beat is very pretty, as it is on previous tracks, but with the really farty bass line on this thing that just felt really flat and just kind of bodiless. There were a lot of reasons I just wasn't digging the sounds on this thing. Because of that track and the closer, like I said, whose sound really kind of comes out of nowhere for me, this LP does fall apart a little bit at the end. But a majority of this album, I'm telling you, it's very long, stretch out tech house tracks that last 7, 9, 12 minutes. And these lengthy giants, as well as these smaller piano-driven pieces around them, I'm loving them. I'm feeling a light, decent 8 on this LP. If you've given it a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. This review is my opinion. If you don't like it, here's a straw. I want to give a shout out to John Smith, who made this picture, Edward Snowden, and the NSA. Remember, you're being tapped. My dad, and the Kanye review, which is coming up next. Okay. All right. Only the strong subscribe. All mistakes were intentional. Anthony Fantano, Jon Hopkins, forever.